Well, we're thinking of running candidates in all of the seats at the present time. It's very hard to tell you what the position will be on preferences because you'll appreciate we've kept this very quiet, right, for obvious reasons. And it's news to Mr Albanese, if he's watching, and news to Peter Dutton and his team, what we're doing. So we'll have to have discussions with them. But the main thing is to do what's best for this country.
The major parties last time. Why do you have a vote cards or let them off?
Well, I didn't. I think we put, in some states, we put the Liberal Party second. In some states, we put the Labor Party second. It was up to all the different states. But it's really up to policies, I think. That's where. Sorry. Oh, well, our policies, we can see them from our release that went out today. There's a couple of good grabs for you there, but we can't tell you all the news in one day or you won't come to our press conferences.
What's your biggest policy?
Well, our biggest policy is to cut government waste, much as Elon Musk is doing in the United States. The same way. We plan to have a team of people, and I'm not standing for election, I'm merely a party functionary, but I'm sure that the party wants to have a team of people who can go through the procedures in Australia that sees more and more of the public sector having more and more of our capital. You've got to realise the public sector doesn't create wealth, and it's the private sector that does. So the more money we've got in the private sector creating jobs, wealth and growth, the bigger taxation, the better taxation base we've got.
So, Mr. Palmer, you said you believe in all of Donald Trump's policies. Do you believe in tariffs? Should Australia be imposing tariffs? And will the tariffs on steel affect the ban for Australia's iron ore?
I don't think so. I think we need more steel production in Australia and we need more manufacturing in Australia. We export so much iron ore to China and Japan, they use that for their manufacturing base and become the world's largest manufacturer. We want jobs and value-added jobs in Australia. We've got substantial iron ore deposits, substantial coal deposits, bauxite, copper, molybdenum. Those minerals should be developed here. And rather than export iron ore for something like $100 a tonne, it's better to export steel for a couple of $1,000s a tonne. But we need good technology. Our technology in our steel mills is a century before last, and that's why we're falling behind. So it makes sense to invest in our country. The other policy we've got is that we've got a terrible housing crisis in this country. And when you look at some of the solutions that was adopted by the Japanese government when the same thing happened in Tokyo and Yokohama, was to put a fast train just 120 kilometres outside of Tokyo and to develop cheaper land for their population where they could all commute to the city within 20 minutes. The government could do that. They could show the leader so our young people could afford to have a home, and that would bring down our cost of living as well. So that's a very important policy. You're after a policy. I gave you one. Yeah.
How
on to Sue Ellen.
did you come to be the chairman of Trumpet of Patriots? Did you pay Mr O'Rourke to essentially take control of the party?
You'll recall that we had an action in the High Court last week, which was announced. I had got a telephone call. And they said that they admired the things that I'd done and things what our policies were, and they wanted to see whether I'd be interested in joining the party, which I did, and whether I'd stand for election to be the chairman of the party, which I agreed to do. We've certainly not paid them any money. Voluntarily. Some are voluntary member. Of course, you've got the Labor and the Liberal parties got together to make sure that we could never compete with them. They could spend $90 million at every election, but smaller parties wouldn't be able to do that. So it was a good opportunity, and we thought we'd take advantage of it for the Australian people.
In regards to your High Court challenge, in regards to your High Court challenge against the deregulation of the United Australia Party, Commonwealth Wealth lawyers sort of said that the party may have voluntarily de-registered itself in order to avoid transparency obligations. Can I please get your response to that?
Well, that's a bit of a joke because we were the #1 transparent party. That's how you all know we spent $100-and-something million on that election, so that's just a rubbish. But of course, that's the United Australia Party. We have to accept that. The United Australia Party is not running in this election. The Trumpets of Patriots have been registered since 2005 as a political party in this country. They're entitled to contest the election. I, as a citizen, am entitled to support any party I want to and to vote for any party I want to. We still have a democracy in this country, although the Uniparty wants to close it down. They want to make the Teals uncompetitive. They want to make the United Australia Party uncompetitive. But we have to abide by the rules, and that's what we're doing. So 2 questions, 2 more, take it away.
You previously campaigned
chiefly against the Labor Party. They're short out in 2019. The document here only says Iranian liberal seats. You're talking a lot about Peter Dutton. Should we conceive this is more of a project to take votes from the right of the Liberal Party?
Well, it's an attempt to have common sense policies for Australia. Like some of our policies, if you look at them prima facie, might be pro one side or the other, right? But we think that really we've got to do what's best for the country and we've got to bring back accountability. Because Peter Dutton said on that wonderful broadcasting body that runs Four Corners, one of Australia's preeminent broadcasters, that he wasn't, 60 Minutes, he wasn't a Donald Trump. Well, that alarms us because we think Donald Trump's been very effective in reducing public expenditure. We don't want another coalition government that does nothing. We remember Scott Morrison, the man with 7 portfolios, you know, and we remember the centralisation of power. When I was in this parliament, I remember how difficult it was to get anything done for the Australian people.
Do you expect you can be effective there, taking votes off the coalition's right flank with people disenfranchised with the coalition?
I don't think we should look at it as taking votes from anybody, because that presupposes that Australians are locked in, that they don't think, that they haven't got freedom of choice. Sorry? Well, I don't think there are too many around. They've been declining in previous years as they have for the Labor Party. It's the uniparty we're up against, and we think these ideas are good. After all, why should everyone be so alarmed? Because the idea of an election, of a democracy, is to have a battle of ideas. You don't have to agree with all of them, but we have to defend that in Australia. That's a very important thing. No, that's the name of the party when we joined it. And it's very appropriate for this election because it's the Trumpet of Patriots. It's the Trumpet. I stutter a little bit, so I say the Trumpet of Patriots. That's what it is. It's a clear definition of what you're voting for. So when our people get into the voting box, when people decide who they want to vote for, do they want to vote for the Greens? I can't see that. Do they want to vote for the Teals? Well, they shouldn't, right? But do they want to vote for the Trumpet of Patriots? Of course they do, especially the trumpet part. That's if they believe in Trump's policies. But we've got to go. But I know that guy wants one over there, and I knew him when I was in Parliament before. He's a wonderful journalist. He was a top guy, a veteran. He believed in the people's right to know, so I'll have to recognise him for a last question. Don't feel bad about it. Buy him a drink later. What have you got? Come on.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Can I just ask a couple of things? You'll be running above the line in the Senate, I assume.
Every Senate will be above the line, but I think...
And can I just ask you, just a couple of policies you took to the last election.
Yeah.
3% cap on home loans and the 15% licence on iron ore exports. Is that something you're going to prosecute again this time?
Well, I think I can't say because, you know, in a democracy you've got to do what your party says, and as I explained to you, the policies will be released in the next couple of months. But personally, I think there should be a cap on home loans because I think home loans is very important. We've had a lot of social disruption in this country. We've seen banks foreclose on a lot of Australians' homes and they've had to be sold, and they've been sold to immigrants that have come to this country, nearly 1 million or so in the last year, if you take the student visas and everything into account. They're cashed up from selling their house in Europe, and those Australians are now without homes. And a lot of them are hungry. And, you know, the Albanese government gives $1 million a year to Food Bank, and they've got 3.7 million households that need assistance. I mean, why is that the situation? Well, we know in Australia you might have a husband and wife both working very hard and they're doing everything they can to protect the home for the children and looking after their health and their other needs, etc. like that. But their basic income may be above the threshold of social security because it's going into the home. Their children, they go without food, and that's a really bad thing for our country. They can't get any support, and the government could support if they wanted to Food Bank and other organisations to feed people in this position. I was personally concerned about it. That's why I donated $5 million, because I wanted to encourage other Australians, other billionaires that do nothing all day but sit on their arse to put some money in. But it hasn't had that effect. People tend to like to keep their money. So I think the government should step in there.
Why don't you run yourself, Mr. Trump? You're inspired by Donald Trump. Why not run yourself?
Because I'm too old.
Clive Palmer there.